Hello everybody, picking up where I left off yesterday, I'm going to be taking a look at yet another Deluxe action figure from Marvel Legends, celebrating 85 years. And in my opinion, this character is long overdue the Deluxe treatment. It is of course Odin. Now, when we take a look at the packaging, we can see that this is very similar to the Hulkbuster or the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider that we got earlier last year as well. It's kind of nondescript really, it's largely black borders, but it does have this fantastic window display where we can see Odin and all of his various bits and pieces on display here. And this looks really good and is fairly presentable if you want to put this on your shelf. The side panel is nice and chunky, a lot thicker than we usually get with the standard Marvel Legends box, and it's good to see that Hasbro have taken full advantage of this by giving us a fantastic image that we can put on a side profile and really admire when it's on our shelf. If we want to see more of that image, we can flip the package over and we have this slightly enlarged image here, which looks absolutely brilliant. And then we also have a little bit of bio on the left hand side, but this is a nice balance I think between image and text, and this looks really good. The first thing you'll notice when you liberate this figure from the packaging is just how heavy and solid he is, which is a really good feeling, and I think he looks really bright and colourful too, which is brilliant. Now, in terms of the head sculpt, obviously there's been a lot of different interpretations of Odin across the years, but they're all largely similar, and I think they've opted for a really nice choice. I think this works really very well. There's actually some really nice washes running through the beard as well and the hair, which is great, something I often bemoan of these figures these days where we don't see enough in terms of washes. They do tend to do it on the head sculpt, and this looks great. And I think there's a fair amount of detail here, especially if we look at the eye. That looks really realistic. I think they've done a fantastic job there of just, really getting in there and getting that fine detail. Plus also, in terms of the sculpt, I do like how they've actually sculpted in the eye patch, and there's actually some detail within the eye patch itself. I think that's a pretty cool touch. And all in all, I think this looks very striking and looks pretty authentic to what I would think of Odin as looking like. Now, pretty much every element of this figure has been newly sculpted, which means they've recycled nothing here, and we're getting an awful lot for our buck. He's a lot broader and more oversized than any of the other standard 6-inch Marvel Legends figures, and he comes in around about 7 inches tall. So that provides a much larger canvas for them to really sculpt some fine detail, and they do take advantage of that. I really like the scale mail that we see here, each groove individually sculpted in, of course. Then we have his belt, we have that medallion across his chest, which is a separate piece, and each of his various armor pieces, whether it's gauntlets or shoulder pads or what have you, all looks really unique and really finely detailed, which is brilliant. Sadly, in terms of the paint apps, there's really not an awful lot going on here. There's no wash to really draw out this detail, which is, a real shame because there's such a lot of detail here. But what they do is use a variety of different plastics to really bring out the colour of the character, and I think it works almost as well actually, where you can almost forgive the lack of shading. And personally, I think it's a really nice touch that we have this cloth cape as well. Now, it's only a thin strip really, it just can't wrap around him, but it is nice to have a separate texture. I don't like rubber capes or plastic capes, which really hinder articulation, but it's absolutely fantastic. This just adds an extra layer, a little bit more depth and texture, and of course if you lift it up, you can see even more detail on the reverse of his costume. So this is a highly detailed figure. I think they've done a really nice job, and as I said, most of it, in fact all of it, is original. Sadly, Odin does suffer in the articulation department. I can't really get his head to move at all. He does have ball joints in his shoulders though, so his arms will lift up out, and thankfully those shoulder pads don't get in the way of that, as you would hope. He does have the complementary bicep swivel, and then he has the pin swivel at the elbow, so that lower forearm will rotate just about, but it is hindered a little bit by that plastic gauntlet, and it will just about hinge to about 90 degrees, maybe 45 degrees there to be honest. And then of course there is a pin swivel at the wrist as well, so the handle rotates all the way around and it will hinge from side to side. Now we've got a ball joint in his waist of course, so he can move from side to side quite comfortably. He can lean left and right a little bit as well, and he'll even bend forwards and backwards ever so slightly. He does have ball joints in the hips as well, so of course the legs will kick out to the side. There is a complementary thigh swivel at the top of the leg there as well. The leg will just about kick forwards. It struggles when it comes to going backwards because there is a plastic skirt there which kind of gets in the way, and then he does have a single joint at the knee there, allowing the leg to bend to about 90 degrees. Before finally we have another ankle pivot, which will allow the foot to hinge forwards and backwards and rock from side to side. Now, I'm super impressed with the range of accessories that Odin comes with, including an additional pair of hands, a closed fist and an open gripping hand, not one but 2 different helmets, 2 versions of his raven, his scepter and his sword. And once again, I think it's worth noting that all of these are original pieces, with the exception of the scepter, which we have seen once before on an Odin builder figure, which we'll take a look at in a moment. And I have to say, the various combination of these accessories work really well together to create a number of different looks for for this figure. The headpiece, the top of the hair actually just clips off, and you can then swap it and have the helmet, so it looks really seamless, and I think this looks absolutely fantastic. I really like the addition of having two versions of the Raven. Now, interestingly, there isn't a particular perch point. Of course, he should have this on his shoulder, but you can just about tuck his talons underneath his fur collar there, and that seems to hold it in place. The flying version is a little bit harder, but you can strap this to the top of his helmet, which is kind of what I did. I'm not sure if this is the best look, but hey, it's a little bit dynamic, and I think it looks quite fun. The use of scepter here, I think, works really well. Of course, you can hold this in his grip with no issues. Likewise, his sword, he's able to get both of these pieces into his grip, although I did find mine to be a little bit tricky to get in because they're quite thick, broad hilts, and his grip is fairly tight, so you have to persevere. But once it's in, it's nice and snug, and it looks pretty cool. Before I wrap up for today, I just want to do a quick scale comparison. So here he is standing next to Thor. This was the 80th anniversary Thor, which is a really nice figure actually, and as you can see, there's a pretty sizable height differential between the two, and Thor, to be fair, is slightly taller than your average Marvel Legends figure. So Odin's clearly got at least another inch, maybe 2 inches when he's got his helmet on here over Thor, which is cool and makes him quite an overbearing, impressive character. Now, we have had just one other Odin in the Marvel Legends line to date, and it was quite a nice figure. This was a builder figure going back many years now, but I have to say, this new version is far superior in pretty much every way. That original release seems just a little bit too lean, a little bit too muscular, I think, for how I think of Odin. This stockier version seems more comic book accurate. I like the colours much brighter. I like his armour, it's just a lot more detailed and interesting, and overall I think every element of it is just vastly lifted and improved, and I just think it's just a better version all round. Okay, final thoughts from me. I'm going to give this figure 4 stars, and I'm very impressed with that. I think they've done a really nice job. I really like the scale, the size, the weight of this figure. I think the detailing in the sculpt is absolutely immense. I love that they've got all brand new pieces for the most part on this figure, and you know, where there is a little bit of paint apps and the use of colour where they've got it works really well. I think it's a very colourful figure, and I think he just looks very impressive. Where he falls down and where he loses the star for me is around the articulation. That perhaps isn't surprising, but it's a little bit disappointing that he couldn't have had a little bit more motion in certain places. But overall, this is a really nice figure, and I think it's a very worthy addition to our Marvel Legends line, considering we don't get very many Thor-related characters in the Marvel Legends line. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving the video a like. That kind of thing really does help the channel out, and it allows me to keep making more content. And if you're interested in seeing more content, remember to hit subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos coming soon.